and welcome to the Future of Decisions Now podcast, where we have real, candid conversations with thought leaders, practitioners, and tech experts about AI, decision intelligence, and the future of work. I'm your host, Fred Laluyo, the CEO and co-founder of Era Technology. Today's special day. I'm super excited to welcome my good friend, Ray Wang, the founder and CEO of Silicon Valley-based Constellation Research. Ray, hello. Super happy to have you.
Hey, great to be here. And of course, always fun to kick off the year like this. So good.
Oh, so you're an expert in digital transformation. You're a thought leader in the field. You're the best-selling and well-quoted author. You're a frequent keynote speaker, almost like every week, every day. I see you somewhere right now. And it's someone that I've known for many, many years. So super happy to have you. Welcome. Thanks for joining me. Last time we spoke was at our conference in November. So that was back in New York. So much fun conversing with you, and I had a lot of great feedback from our chat. So introduce yourself for those who don't know who you are. There's probably 2 or 3 people out there who still don't know Ray Wang. So introduce yourself, tell us a bit about your background, and tell us a bit about Constellation Research.
So Fred, thanks for having me here. And more importantly, let me share a little bit about Constellation Research. We're basically a Silicon Valley-based research firm, but we tend to have a futurist view. We try to understand where business and technology are going, but more importantly, what are the implications in these macro future trends? For example, people think the population's booming, but actually it's going to be declining. And that's going to change the way we work. It's going to change the resources and how we allocate. People want to know exactly, what's going to happen next in terms of the world of AI, but AI is so big, right? And the question is, well, let's take it down to something that's 18 to 24 months, which is really about how do people envision decisions being made in the future, which is very, very different than just the conversation on AI. People want to know what's happening with, the way that people are working in terms of customer experiences and what are they going to be like. And we talk about a concept called ambient experiences. And so everything we do is really focused on executives that are really trying to understand that intersection of business and technology, where they're going to take that to the next level. And we apply a futurist lens to that research and, of course, to the people that are in our network.
So, we're going to dive into the topic of AI and decision intelligence, but you're probably one of the most active, not to say busy, active is better than busy, analyst, researcher, thought leader in the space. Where do you feed, where are your different feeds that you got to actually come up with those trends, those ideas, those analysis? Is it just by speaking to customers and vendors? I mean, how do you do it?
Yeah, we have a number of signals, right? And the most important signal is what early adopter customers are doing. We tend to align with C-level executives that are pushing the edges, that really want to know how they can do more, what they can do within the limits of the technologies they have, and how to stretch that going forward.
Yeah.
So that's our biggest source. And of course, we work a lot of innovative vendors, the vendors that are actually also doing that as well, because they're not satisfied with the status quo and what's happening in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And that combination of the buy-sell dynamic plus the research level experience that's on our team, that's what actually helps, right? Almost everybody on our team has 20 to 30 years of experience in the industry. And by taking those signals, that level of expertise, then we can get to something that's pragmatic for a CXO in terms of a roadmap for what they're trying to achieve, in terms of getting into a playbook or trying to understand what the right approach is or trying to understand how to build those relationships to build the right teams or culture.
But you're one of the few analysts that I know that are really predicting things. A lot of firms are really, really good at capturing the signals and analyzing them and providing recommendations. But I would say that they're looking at things that are already happening. And you are pretty good at anticipating years in advance. When I launched, and I discussed that with you multiple times, but when we launched Era 8 years ago, you're one of the few guys that I went to and talked about, look, I've got this crazy idea about what is now framed as decision intelligence. What do you think? And like, well, you were talking about ambient orchestration already, and you were seeing what was going to happen years ago. So I don't know, for those of us who are listening, if they want to know what's going to happen in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, raise the person that you want to talk to. Something special about you as well is you understand technology, but you also understand the world quite well, what's happening in the economy, what's happening in many, many dimensions, and invite everybody to read your books and spend time with you. So with that said, when we chatted last time, you talked about the shift to the edge of AI and decisions and the component of decisions in that. So what did you mean? What do you mean? How do you see that evolving?
Yeah, so let's pick up from where we were 8 years ago, right? We were talking about the need to create a layer on top. These transactional systems were no longer delivering value. Traditional BI and AI were static. They weren't helping you do anything. And we weren't able to integrate and bring not only the data, not only the workflows and process, but also the user experiences together. And that's where we talked about infinite ambient orchestration, the ability to bring those three things together so that we could do more based on context. But you know what? I mean, that vision wasn't enough, right? You
Yeah.
carried it a little bit further. And so we're at this point where, the technology allows us to bring the information and insights. That's not the hard part. The technology allows summarization, tells us what's happening in the marketplace. That's great. The crawlers are super fast. But what we really need to do is not just talk about the tech and AI. That's not good enough. What we really want to be able to do is make better decisions. And you and I have talked about this concept around decision velocity. We make a snap decision and then we send it into the management committee and we have no idea where it goes. It could take a
Yeah.
month, it could take a year, it could never be done. We know that's going to happen. But machines are making decisions thousands of times per second. And we are trying to actually figure out how we do that internally. And so ultimately, what we're really doing with AI is actually improving decision intelligence, decision management, because what that means is we can make more decisions more accurately and actually more efficiently over a period of time. And that is an exponential advantage in the marketplace, being able to take the rote decisions out of the equation,
Yeah.
isolate the more important decisions that have to be made. And it's not about pure automation. It's really about when and where do you want to insert the human in that decision process. So the prediction we see going forward is the companies that figure out their decision trees and where to actually insert humans in an effective way are the ones that are going to master AI.
So connecting the humans and the AI capabilities together, the in the loop, on the loop, out of the loop. Um, I have this. We're having all these conversations with many of our clients, and they're showing me those roadmaps. This is our roadmap for supply chain. This is our roadmap for enterprise systems, and they're going to 2028, 29, 2030. And I'm looking at this and I just cannot help thinking and saying, well, look, I think by the time we get to 2028, that roadmap will have exploded. And not that it's bad to have one. You should have one based on what you know today. But I'm seeing things shifting right now quite dramatically. Um, what's your view on that? I mean, when you're advising your clients and they're building the roadmap, there is SAP and there's this tool and that tool, and it's going to be deployed across the world, and it's taking us 5 years. I met a client, not a client, a company that's not a client, a few months ago in Europe, and they were like, "Yeah, we have a 10-year roadmap with SAP." I'm like, "Oh my God, 10-year roadmap? Good luck." I
I
mean,
don't, I
I
don't know if
think
the exec will be there for
in
10 years.
in the next 2 3 years, your entire enterprise will run on one chip from NVIDIA. What, how do you see that? I mean, what do you tell companies when they're coming to you with that 5-year roadmap, 10-year roadmap? Because they have to do something, they have to go somewhere. And at the same time, whatever we say today is going to be completely
Yeah.
proven wrong by 2027, 2028.
So first of all, it's great that they have the luxury of doing a 10-year roadmap. And I
They're
don't
actually a
know.
luxury brand, so you're right.
If there's a luxury brand that has the staying power, that is dominant market share, they could probably do that. But most companies actually have to operate in a 12 to 18 month time frame and
Yeah,
then an 18 to 36-month time frame. That seems to be what it is. And it's kind of, it's really dependent on when the CEO arrives or joins, right? That kind of dictates a lot of the strategy and how they move. But the challenge here is you're asking the wrong questions. Not you, but the client could be
sure.
asking the wrong questions. And the wrong question is, what is my 10-year roadmap from the legacy transactional system I'm using? That's the wrong question. The question should be, how do I relegate the cost structure from that legacy application to 1/10 the cost so I can abstract the data, take the processes and orchestrate them, and then actually serve UX on top of that layer? I want an over-the-top solution that negates my legacy vendor vendor so that I can actually innovate on top of it. So I want the cost saving and the innovation to happen at the same time. And if it doesn't happen at the same time, I'm in the wrong game. And so most of the problem is you're trying to make a legacy system operate in the AI age when it was never designed for that, and it's going to take forever for that to even be delivered. And most of these companies never even got the industry specific functionality they wanted anyways from the legacy vendor. So you think you're going to get AI in time? No, not happening.
When I was building Anaplan, I used to say that crap software in the cloud was still crap software.
But
Today I say
you get
that
subscription of it. You get subscription crap.
now I say that the dumb software with a layer of AI on top is still dumb software. And I think that you're going to see a shaking of the enterprise landscape in the next. It started already. I think 2024 was that pivotal moment where large enterprises started saying we got to rethink the stack, rationalize it. What's your view on that? I mean, you gave some indication in your previous answer, but do you think we're really at that pivotal moment where large and small enterprises are really starting to rethink the stack?
Everyone is looking at this.
Yeah.
It started when Twitter decided to get rid of two-thirds of their engineering team. It started when Facebook decided to get rid of one-third of their engineering team. We're in an era of exponential efficiency. If you're not 10x better, one-tenth the cost, no one's paying attention to you. And that's really because our technical debt is so high. The CFO of a large manufacturer said something to me that was actually very insightful. He said, in everything that I do, my cost structure goes down with time and volume, except for effing healthcare and SaaS. And he was right. He was completely right, right?
Yeah.
And I would say our problem is that our cost structure in the age of AI seems to be more expensive than what it was in the internet for a few reasons. The internet was open, it was decentralized, it had a lot of players, and prices were lower. Right now, AI is closed, it's centralized, it's got a few players, and everything's expensive. Our goal is to break that barrier because if we don't do that, companies can no longer afford the technical landscape, the cost of that technical debt, and trying to do something in innovation. And so this is why we're going to see a number of over-the-top solutions sit on top of transactional systems, bring that information and insight together, and start crunching away because people don't have time to wait for their vendors to actually get to that level of innovation.
Yeah, no, I think that that's true. And I think there's a 2024, we saw a lot of large enterprises aggressively tackling the consumption of their, are they really consuming what they bought, what they committed to buying? Look at the price, big pressure. You see that in every report on the growth of
Yep.
the leading, SaaS vendors. That's not as high as it was by a big margin. And it doesn't seem that the trend is reversing. I think there's going to be an emergence of new vendors who are going to be priced differently. Just consume what you need to consume, pay for what you want, but for what you've consumed, and that's it. Start when you want, stop when you want, and I think the model is really being flipped on its head. Going back to DI and AI and the value that it generates, because we talked about the the consequences, but and the context in which this revolution, this AI revolution, is happening. We've got multiple waves happening, right? There's a fed up with SaaS wave on one end. There is what you just said about that CFO saying healthcare and SaaS going up. This is not good for our industry either. But let's talk about the value, the business value that this generates, right? You talk about decision intelligence, the ability to digitize decision making at scale. Talk about that value. Do you see that happening and starting to transform how companies are operating and are generating value?
Yeah, we're seeing across the board, right? Dynamic pricing, inventory availability and stockouts, and transport and logistics, right? Those are three separate topics. And traditionally, you have three different systems, and traditionally, you have a control tower and something else trying to make all this work.
Yeah.
Not going to happen in a world of decision intelligence. All those things are factors when you make the decision at that point, right? You do it in multivariable. You're not in single thread. You're not on a waterfall model. You're doing it in real time and in parallel, right? And so you realize that my highest paid customer, my best customer, and my most loyal customer goes first. And so we'll make those other parameters and attributes work towards that, right? And you start to learn those patterns. So even if you didn't know that, if you started observing what manually was being done, you realize that, yeah, there was a customer first culture and it was the best customers first. And that becomes a very interesting learning. And we see that inside companies. The other one is companies that have been collecting massive amounts of data and information,
Correct.
but not able to process that, suddenly have the ability to actually parse context. Was it the time of day? Was it the location? Was it the business process? Oh, no, it was actually the role of the person who called. Or is it something else bigger than that? And that's when it gets exciting, right? You start to be able to take multiple types of attributes, test them to see if those are actually factors in that decision. And you realize that, you know what? It's really just three factors. Oh, okay. Time of day and, maybe the weather and, the sports team won in the local city. Okay. Yeah. Cut the deal.
But
People are in a good mood.
the point you're making is super important. One is around decisions are being made across the value chain. I was yesterday in Chicago with one of our clients, and we were presenting, the team was presenting wonderful roadmap, 60 different use cases identified. And the presentation was by function. This is what happens for demand. This is what happens for inventory. This is what happens for logistics. And this is how value cost is very well done with bubbles and everything, 2 by 2. It looked wonderful. Then the good friend of mine, just the executive in the room, was like, yeah, okay, but what about the connection between those silos? What about the connection between those functions? How can I optimize my digital media spend online based on the availability of the product, in a given store? That's looking at things across the value chain. And at that point, only digital decision intelligence can come in and resolve the problem. The second point you're calling out, which I think is fascinating, and I'm blown away by that. What we do is so simple. Like when you think about it, now the complexity comes from the scale, but demand forecasting at the store SKU level, in trying to understand that logically, is really not complicated. It's the factors that are influencing the forecasts are not that complex. You just mentioned weather and so on and so forth, cannibalization of SKUs. I mean, just intellectually, this is not rocket science. This is fairly simple, and yet companies are struggling with the construct of people making those decisions manually and flying spreadsheet around. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say that the spreadsheet word in 2025, but here we are. Why is that? I mean, this has been my life for the last 30 years, and I'm still struggling to comprehend why it's been so difficult to resolve those very simple problems.
Because we're trying to solve everything in a 2D world. That's when it's actually a 3D problem, right? That's kind of the challenge.
That's a good one.
Another way to look at this is in the past, it was very expensive to do every iteration or every simulation of a forecast, right? And today we can actually do them all very quickly. And so now instead of working on the problem, we actually can figure out which solution is the right solution. All right. And that actually allows us to think more simply. But for those who've actually had to do the hard work and make all these things happen, we think in a much more complicated way. The good news is like younger workers or newer workers to an industry or people with less experience are going to just jump to the next conclusion
Yeah.
and be able to go from there. We're still trying to figure out the attributes and the sourcing and the veracity and what's going on in the back end. And it suddenly gets very complicated because someone loaded the data at this hour, but the other guy loaded the data at this hour. And like, oh, Jesus Christ, right? With AI, that goes away. The question is, you have 15 options. Which one do you want to choose? As opposed to, it took us 15 iterations to get to one option.
Yeah. This is crazy. And the complexity comes from the inefficiencies of communication between people, of availability of data. I mean, you resolve the data and the flow, and you've got this. My point is those problems are not now. Network optimization, you have some complexity in those
There's some
systems.
crazy
There
algorithm there,
are
but
some
yeah.
complex problems to resolve. But when I look at where we are talking with the most advanced companies in the world, and that's where agentic and data work and can actually fix a lot of stuff. So agentic, right? So that's the next wave of buzzwords. For some, it's actually a real product. That's the case here at Era. We're releasing our agentic framework in the next couple of months. We're very excited about it. But talk about it. I mean, talk about not just AI and DI, but the agentic revolution. Is it buzz? Is it hype? Do you believe in it?
Well, I definitely believe in it. And what's going on is we have basically agents that play a role, right? And each of these agents are basically able to take things from, it could be a task or a set of skills that they're putting together. And that's really how they operate, right? What's the skill? What's the role that they're playing? What
Yeah.
kind of tasks do they put together? And what business problems are they actually trying to solve? And basically they're serving as an agent to you. right? In terms of the way that you delegate decision making, or you automate decision making, or you bring a human back into the loop. So for us, really, I think the agents today are designed more around roles that people can understand and business processes that people are comfortable, or decision flows that are in the way. But I think in the future, you're going to find like a set of super agents that manage other agents. And you're going to find
Sure.
some super agents that actually do roles in different areas. Like, oh yeah, this agent was created for this geography. It actually does HR and marketing and supply chain. And you're like, oh, okay, good to know, right? Unlike humans, which would get very confused by that, these agents can actually multitask, do different functions, and actually be okay. So I think that, this notion of agents is one way to get tasks and decisions delegated over time. But we're going to start to see other capabilities for the simulations and the suggestions happen. So we're going to go from the ability to actually automate something, to predict something, to prevent something, and then to get the level of situational awareness where those decisions are going to be more autonomous. And so that kind of trajectory is where we're headed. But agents is the first step to getting us there.
But for the prevention to happen, this is where I predict a collapsing of the stack. I think you're going to end up with an intelligent level of, and I'm using the word carefully, a level of transactional system that will be a little bit more intelligent than it is today. But then you'll have a level of intelligence that will orchestrate decisions, recommendations, and enable action across the value chain. And that's why if you have like this current landscape with your ERPs and then a bunch of application purpose built for every single problem that they're narrowly designed to resolve, and then some intelligence on top, you break that flow. If you have a two-tier model with the execution and the intelligence, you can actually, when you talk about prevention, I want to be able to slow down what's happening in the production line, or stop a PO, or move inventory from one place to the other. That's where the intelligence takes the action. That's where the agent enables an action, and not just, here is a recommendation, you people go and execute. That real-time execution, that connection of the co-pilot down to the engines of the plane, so to speak, is really key. Do you see that collapsing of the stack coming up?
We're going to see a collapsing of the stack and the collapsing of the decision tree at the same time.
Yeah.
So the stack will allow for the collapsing of the decision tree, and the collapsing of the decision tree will help you figure out where and when you insert a human. It'll also help you figure out if you have a certain level of human intervention, then here's the level of staffing that you're going to need. So we're going to work those things inside out and outside in, because we want to know exactly, what level. Actually, what I was thinking about is we have AI agents managing other AI agents that will also emerge, right? And also managing humans, and humans the other way around, depending on what level, what policies you put into place.
So we're going to wrap up, but not rattle. We don't rattle. We wrap up.
Don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone.
But when we started this conversation, I was talking about your innate talent for prediction. So this agentic, this decision intelligence, what's the time frame for it to really fundamentally change the way we work, the way we operate, to change the jobs that we still do today? What is your view on that timeline realistically?
The short answer, it's going to be about 24 months for people to actually get an agent up, train it, perfect it, get it to a point where you can just leave it alone. Most people get to see some benefits in the first 3 months, right, because you can see what's going on. But to get to training to a level of precision that you're happy with might take you a little bit longer, right? It's more data, it's more interaction.
24 months is nothing, to be clear, at the enterprise scale.
That's
24 months at our
thing.
life scale, it seems like a long time. When you think about how a large enterprise moves, back to my point about the roadmap to 2028, 20 whatever.
Yeah.
24 months is nothing. Do you agree with that?
It's nothing, but I think you're going to start seeing ROI in the first 6 months.
Yeah.
Right? But to get it to a point where you don't have to think about it, and the agents are running on their own, right? To get to 95% precision, right? It might take you 12 months, but to get to 99% precision, that's what's going to take you to 24 months. So I should qualify my answer that way. But once that training regime's in, you get the false positives, the false negatives, the exceptions, like why you do things differently, all those things out of the way. The next set gets even easier, right? So there's like a learning curve, and then there's an explosion of your ability to actually get to success.
So we're running out of time, but I'm going to squeeze one more question, if I may. I saw one of your posts on LinkedIn, I think, where it had to do with MBA graduates not being able to, from the best schools, not necessarily being able to find jobs. And you were commenting on that, saying, yeah, I'm not surprised. So the impact of what you just talked about and the timeline that, or the time frame that you're providing as an insight, 24 months, what does that mean in terms of talent war, enablement, education? I know it's a big question here. So any thoughts on that before we wrap up?
Yeah, so I think I'm a little bit worried in the sense that, what we used for training, like some of the beginner jobs that are more data gathering and more summarization, right? The ability to actually, do that kind of work, that part may go away. And we actually think that traditional pyramid of 1 to 3, 1 to 5, 1 to 7, 1 to 10 in each level goes away because you
Yeah,
end up, instead of with a pyramid, you end up with a diamond because AI and automation are going to take those steps out. But for the folks that do remain in those positions, they have amazing set of tools that will augment their capabilities for them to be successful. Now, that being said, I think there are going to be new jobs that are going to be created. I hope they're created at a rate equally as fast as the jobs that they have to replace. That part I'm not sure of. But I do know we've got a lot of 22-year-olds who might want to do consulting or investment banking or want to be in the legal profession or accounting. Their jobs will never look the same again. Those those
never.
those are gone. Just like middle manager jobs will be gone. And so the few that actually stick it out and do it, they're going to have some amazing advantages. But they're going to be new jobs, right, for people to
Yeah,
think about, right? Like what's an AI ethicist going to do, right? How are they going to look at that? What do decision scientists do, right? What's decision management, decision intelligence look like? Because now you have all these aggregates. What's that flow look like? I mean, there's going to be decision user experience consultants, right?
sure.
Right? Because you want to get that flow right. And you're starting to think about the human interactions. And because we're operating at machine scale with humans, there's always going to be work trying to figure out how do we actually slow it down for human scale or consumed for human scale. So for example, when stock markets like fall 5%, the algos are forced to stop because we put a break in the market and trades and everything gets reset. And so these experienced consultants will be thinking about how we do that with decisions as well. And then the last question, which is always important before you go public or with your project or put it out into the wild, is who do you sue when something goes on? And so the legal teams are going to be working like crazy, not the traditional lawyers trying to look at case law, but the ones trying to invent what the future looks like in these decision sciences.
Always a pleasure, Ray. Always a pleasure. Thanks for your insights. Super cool, super interesting. Any last thoughts? I know you've given a lot today, but
One last
um,
thought that's going to be provocative just for you.
I want that. Go on, let's go.
Okay, so I told you that AI is closed. You know I'm a free market capitalist, and I'm okay with that. But the rules have to be fair. And so if all the insights are locked up into private networks, then we have no public good or public knowledge. And therefore, we end up with the dark ages of the internet. And you've seen me talk about this in the past. I actually have a solution for that now.
Okay.
Imagine that the insights in the LLM expire 10 milliseconds, 10 seconds, 10 minutes, 10 hours, 10 days, 10 months, 10 years, depending on the level of public good and that insight. Just like patents have expiration dates, insights inside LLMs, I believe in the future will have expiration dates like patent law, trademark law, and IP.
Yeah, you got me thinking on that one. I didn't expect that curveball at the end of our chat. Um, so many, so many questions.
Next
Yeah,
time on
that's
the next
interesting. That's
episode.
going to be for that's how we're going to start our next chat, buddy, because that's super interesting. Right. Thank you so much. I loved it. Now you really got me thinking, but this is we got to go, got to wrap up. Otherwise we're going to stay too long. So thank you so much.
Thank
This
you, Fred.
concludes our Future of Decision Now podcast, the real return on AI. And you can view today's podcast on our website at eratechnology.com. Ray, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Fred.